Hello and welcome to our program, Where God Weeps, a program where we talk about the situation of the suffering church around the world. Today we're going to be talking about a very particular suffering, an inhuman suffering, and that is provoked by the violence ongoing in Syria and the millions of refugees flooding out of this country, and many of them going into the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon. There is very little to receive them, except for the work of one religious community, the Good Shepherd Sisters. To tell us more about this work of the Good Shepherd Sisters, it is my privilege to welcome Sister Hanan Youssef, who is trying to do the best that she can in Beirut and in the Bekaa Valley to give care to these refugees. Sister Hanan, thank you for being with us here today on our program.
Thank you, Mark. I'm very happy to be with you and to share with you our life in Lebanon.
Sister, your community, the Good Shepherd Sisters, has been working in Lebanon since 1895. What first brought the community to Lebanon?
Lebanon is an Arabic society, as you know, and the cause of women and girls is a very difficult task. We were asked to come to Lebanon to work with women, batten women, prostituted women, and the batten girls, abused child. And we opened at first a school in Lebanon, and after that we opened a big house in the area where the war in Lebanon started with Palestinian, and we were forced, of course, to leave. The French sisters and the Egyptian one came to Lebanon and opened this mission. And when the war in Lebanon started with Palestinian and militia, Christian militia, it was very, very, very hard to us to stay. Palestinian forced us to leave. We left and we opened many houses in Lebanon to be the presence of the Good Shepherd among the women, the batten women, and the girls. It's our mission, like
the key of your work. And Sister, what first attracted you to become a Good Shepherd Sister?
The suffering of girls in Lebanon. Yeah, the suffering of girls, and nobody cares about the suffering of girls. When I was in school, I have been in girls' school. And I heard a lot of suffering and a lot of drugs abuse, a lot of prostitution. That's why I was touched by this suffering. And I say to myself, nothing makes sense to me if I don't give all my life to Jesus, to be the presence, His presence among the suffering people, mostly girls and women.
In fact, you must have seen then the work of the Good Shepherd Sisters. Is that how you first were attracted to them?
Yeah, of course, because the Good Shepherd Sisters is international foundation. It started in France and over the world after that. And yesterday, Stephen noticed a quote that touched me a lot. One person is more precious, more value than the world. That's why, for me, it makes sense. It makes sense. It gives me strength in my daily life, in my care for others.
Now, Sister, you are working in Beirut. You have a clinic there, but you're also going to the refugee camps, especially those refugee camps where the Syrian refugees are coming over. But I want to ask you first, before we get to the question of refugees, what is your day-to-day life? What is it that you would be doing? How do you receive the people, and what do you do for the people?
You know, I was all the time touched by living with Muslim and Christian, because I was born in a village in the south of Lebanon. We were Muslim, Druze and Christian, and we grow together and we share together. And I was all the time thinking, if I can work in an area, diverse area, with Muslim and Christian, and learn to live together day by day. That's why the congregation chose the area of Ruwaysat. It's a very, very poor area in the suburb north of Beirut, where a big community of Shia, Muslim Shia, are there, very poor area, and some of them Sunnah, some of them without any paper, Bedouin or Kurd without any paper, came from Syria to Lebanon before the war in Syria, and a big Christian community. It's a diverse area, and I was all the time dreaming working in such area. That's why my daily life, I belong to a community far away from the mission, and I woke up early in the morning. I do my prayer to give sense to my life, to give me strength with the community, and I go to work. In this area, in the beginning, I founded a center to give the chance to children to experience peaceful life, joyful life, and to experience life with others, difference, with Muslim and the Christian children, and to strengthen them to go to school, to cut this circle of violence. They were in the street all the time. I gathered them, 100 children, Christian and Muslim. They experience a lot of things together. They know now each one together, and they do face together many activities. But the most important part is for education. We educate them in the school, and after school we give the possibility to experience a normal infance, you know, in the...
a normal childhood.
Yeah, a normal childhood in this area of violence all the time, of war all the time, you know, we give them the chance to experience other things, to experience peace, to experience that violence cannot be an answer anymore, and only peace can be an answer. And they grow together. And for me, it's very important for our society that the children, the little children, can grow together.
This is the future.
This is the future. And experience other things. Experience that life also peace and love and justice and education and, you know, the human value.
And not just violence and not just war.
Not just war and violence, exactly.
Now, of course, willingly or unwillingly, your sisters, your community have been drawn into the refugees flooding over from this terrible violence ongoing at the moment in Syria.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the work of your sisters and the refugees, particularly the camps near the Syrian border? Yes.
Okay. We, as Good Shepherd Sister, we are called to work with marginalized people, with very poor people, and with displaced people. It's our mission to do reconciliation and to be beside the displaced person. That's why in the plan of the Bekaa, we 2 years ago, when the refugees from Syria were really in a huge number. You can't imagine the number of refugees that passed the borders all the day. And the plan of the Bekaa in a Christian area. 2 from our sister, they are 3 this year, are welcoming 100 of family of refugees. They built a tent for them and they provide everything for them: food, medication, social help, and hearing for women, and you know, and it's really a tough task because a lot of suffering, a lot of suffering, and in a small country, we didn't prepare for
it's
this.
A great burden.
Yeah, it's suddenly,
yes.
And the huge number of refugees. We need to improvise all things, you know, It's the little things for baby, for women, for every each
because
person.
they come with nothing, in fact.
With nothing. And they are really very, very, very poor people. Syrian refugees are very poor who choose to pass the border and living in the tent. They are very poor. Some few families, before the war, they prevent this and they bought a flat in Lebanon and they come to live. But the most important majority are very, very, very poor. They arrive without nothing, without any money.
Sister, we're going to look at this now. We're going to watch a short report on the Syrians coming into the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon.
A normal day begins the city of Zakhleh, Lebanon, in the Bekaa Valley. Just over the mountains, about 10 kilometers away, lies the border to war-torn Syria. This converted garage in the city's suburbs now serves as a temporary shelter for 3 families who recently escaped the fighting in Damascus.
هون المطبخ يعني كثير حمام مرحاض صغير.
These 3 families are among thousands who have found temporary shelter in Zakhleh. According to recent United Nations statistics, there are over 1.5 million documented refugees who have fled Syria to neighboring Lebanon, Jordan, Turkey, or Iraq since the start of the conflict in 2011.
There are many refugees. The region is getting crowded, and they need everything: electricity, water, fuel. They need everything.
Many refugees are settling in the makeshift tent camps in Lebanon's Bekaa Valley, where conditions are difficult, especially during the winter months. Unemployment and hunger are some of the struggles these people confront every day. The local diocese, with the help from international organizations like Aid to the Church in Need, is helping provide basic needs to the ever-increasing refugee population.
They came from Aleppo, Homs, Hama, but mostly from Homs, lately from Damascus. Above all, we want to be present with the people that are close to us. We try to give them shelter. First, we listen to them, to understand their suffering, to ease their pain. We visit them where they live, we get to know them and the conditions under which they live, and determine what we can offer them: food, blankets, tents. So far, we have distributed 100 tents to these families. In the winter, however, it is impossible to live in them because the water gets in. It's a difficult situation.
We have to be ready to reconstruct. It will come, and we have to be ready to help them now with food, later with counseling and giving them spiritual consolation, but in the future to restore their country, because they belong to Syria and they should not leave Syria like many others.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our program. We're here with Sister Hanan of the Good Shepherd Sisters, and we're talking about the refugees flooding into the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon from Syria. Sister Hanan, thank you again for being with us on our program. Sister, 1 out of every 4 persons in Lebanon is now a Syrian refugee. Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about the weight, the burden of this on the Lebanese people, on the Lebanese country?
You know, I was 11 years old when the war in Lebanon started. I never experienced peace till now. But the crisis with the refugees from Syria, it's a more hard task. Because in Lebanon, already we have a destructured country, a small country, very humble infrastructure. We don't have enough electricity for Lebanese people. We don't have enough water for Lebanese people. We don't have enough space at school, free school for Lebanese people. We don't have enough space at hospital. And we are facing a very hard economic situation, political situation, and persecuted situation. And with huge number of refugees, you can imagine the crisis, the social crisis. They are everywhere, in the small village till the town of Beirut. Everywhere we can find Syrian refugees laying by ground like that without any support. It's for us a big task. We are not prepared to welcome them as a human being, with dignity. That's why it's really very hard task.
Is there resentment from the side of the Lebanese saying, it's enough, we cannot accept more?
Of course. All the people, even the Muslim who are with Syria, who support the war in Syria, some of Shia people support the war. They are overwhelmed. They told to me, sister, we can't. It's enough. Every day it's enough. Because these people, they need to live. They need to provide the necessary to live. Food, milk, diapers for baby. They are thief, murder, violence everywhere. They are taking. You can't imagine. It's really a big crisis. And the state are not supported enough to provide all things for these refugees. You can imagine the social crisis, and they are 15 or 20 persons in a small room. Imagine the problem, the illnesses and the prostitution, and it's really a very hard situation for Lebanese people who are poor. 80% of Lebanese poor, 20% are outside or are something to live, and 80% are poor. It's getting poor.
So it's simply adding to the poverty. As in many violence, as in many conflict, women and children suffer the most. Can you tell us a little bit, especially with your heart for women and children, what is the suffering that these women and children are carrying?
Oh, it's really in the war, as you know, the most victim are women and children. Because without any supporting economic or any social support, they come in a huge number in the clinic without any clothes, without any food, without anything, and they live in very dire conditions. They get scabies. Scabies, yeah. They get scabies, they get many other contagious illnesses. And they suffer a lot. They leave suddenly without anything. Imagine the suffering for these children to leave all her friend or her life,
her home,
and
yes.
To be uprooted, to be uprooted from their houses, their friends, and to come without anything, without anywhere to go. Sometimes anywhere to go.
Was there one story that touched you personally? I mean, there must be many stories that, of course, are very hard to experience and to live. But was there one story that touched you that sticks in your memory as being particularly difficult?
Many. I was very touched by Iraqi women, Iraqi girls, 18 years old. She came to the dispensary, to the clinic, where we provide all kinds of services, primary health care, but also social care and mental care, because they are traumatized, and dental care, many others care. One day, I welcomed a girl, 18-year-old, speechless. And she came to visit the doctor for health reason, but speechless. The
she-
mother
speechless.
speechless. She didn't speak.
Didn't talk.
The mother talked for her. And I engaged a conversation with the mother. The mother started to cry. She said to me, "Sister, we were a very, very rich family in Iraq. We lost everything. And before coming, my girls was kidnapped by terrorists, was raped 8 times consequently." For me, I was like, I can't support. I started to cry myself. And step by step, we helped. Very, very psychologist helped, psychiatric help. And we started a little bit, each week came to the clinic to support and visit her. 1 year and a half after the girl can speak now, she is in USA, and she is another person now. Thanks God. But it's a human case. It's a human. And the suffering of girls and women situated in this, because most of them are obliged to prostitute herself to provide for her family. It's really very, very... and for the children before coming, let me tell you a story. Before coming, 2 days before coming here, I welcomed a woman with her baby. His ears was eaten by an animal because they are living in very, very dire condition. I was really, really touched. My God, a baby, 80 months maybe, and it's really big, big, big suffering. They don't have houses to live. They don't have the basic right of
a human
dignity
person.
for a human person. Many, many stories like this with women and children are really very hard. And in the 21st century, to experience such as violence, it's really unacceptable. It's enough. It's enough for. It's enough. Mm-hmm.
Sister, how do you carry this? How do you, seeing suffering like this every day, living with suffering every day, how do you not despair? How do you keep your faith in such an environment of suffering?
Of course. I suffered a lot myself. I can feel with people who suffer. But who keep me, it's the cross of the Christ. It's the Christ and the cross all the time. And I see the resurrection after. I'm saying to the Lord, you are risen. And in this blessed time, He is risen. He will give us strength to keep our faith, to keep our commitment for justice, for human rights, for women and the children. He is the reason of my life. If not, I can't. I can't support such a violence. It's unbearable humanly. If I, in a human, it's impossible. It's impossible. It's the Lord and the cross, but the reason, Lord, who keep my faith. He is a good shepherd, and I am faithful that He will shepherd us through this hard situation.
Sister, what can we do?
Enough war. I ask the Western country to stop sending weapon for everybody. Stop sending weapon in the Middle East. Please stop sending weapon. We need peace. The basic. We need peace. Enough war. The most important thing is stopping sending weapon. And please talk about this situation. Do awareness. And I'm really grateful for the ACN, who are really, really engaged and who are doing the best that they can do to support us, to spread awareness among their societies. It's really very important to think that we are suffering day by day for our faith in the Lord and for our remain in this holy land of Orient, and pray also
Sister Hanan, thank you very much for having been with us today on our program.
Thank you, Mark, and may God give us strength and give you really the Holy Spirit to do something for this area in Middle East.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for having been with us today on our program, Where God Weeps. And if you feel called either to prayer or to concrete action, I would ask you to look at the contact information at the end of this program. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.